Imagine waking up one morning, looking across your lawn and realizing that the grass no longer needs you to rescue it every few days. No bags of fertilizer, no endless sprinkler sessions, no rushing outside because the weather forecast says the lawn is about to dry out. Instead, the lawn has learned to hold water, build stronger roots, recycle what it grows, and work with the living soil underneath it. That is the idea behind the Japanese-inspired method we are exploring today. But there is something important to understand. There is no single official Japanese lawn care system called the no fertilizer, no sprinklers, no Scots method. That phrase is a catchy description of a natural, low-input philosophy that shares ideas with Japanese natural farming, especially the belief that healthy soil should do more of the work instead of depending on constant external inputs. Once you understand that principle, the way you look at your lawn can completely change. Welcome back to Blueprint Backyard, where we look beyond the usual gardening advice and ask a much more useful question. What if your lawn problem is not that you need to add more products, but that the soil underneath the grass needs to function better? Many lawns are treated like green carpets. If the color fades, we add something. If weeds appear, we spray something. If the grass looks dry, we water it. If growth slows, we feed it again. The lawn becomes dependent on a cycle of correction. The natural approach turns that thinking around. Instead of constantly forcing the grass to perform, you create conditions where the grass can become more resilient on its own. That does not mean ignoring the lawn. It means paying attention to the soil, roots, moisture, mowing, organic matter, and the particular grass species growing in your yard. The first step is probably the most important, and it begins beneath your feet. Stop thinking of soil as dirt. Healthy lawn soil is a living system containing minerals, air, water, organic matter, microorganisms, and soil animals. Organic matter can help soil retain moisture and nutrients, while biological activity helps keep the soil functioning as a habitat rather than an inert growing medium. Extension turf specialists describe soil as a dynamic system in which these components interact with the grass above them. That matters because grass is only as healthy as the environment around its roots. If the soil is hard, compacted, poorly drained, extremely dry, or biologically weak, adding more fertilizer may temporarily change the color without solving the underlying problem. The goal of this method is to rebuild the relationship between the roots and the soil. So, before you buy another lawn product, walk across the yard slowly. Does the soil feel hard? Are there areas where water sits on the surface? Do your footsteps leave obvious marks? Are there thin patches where grass struggles even though the surrounding areas look healthy? Take a screwdriver and push it into the soil when it is moderately moist, not bone dry. If it slides down easily in one area but becomes difficult to push in another, you may be seeing a compaction problem. Compacted soil has less space for air and water, and roots can struggle to explore it. This is why a lawn that receives plenty of water can still behave as if it is thirsty. The water may be present, but the root zone is not functioning properly. The next part of the method is where the no sprinklers idea needs a little explanation. It does not mean grass should never receive water. A newly seeded lawn, newly installed turf, or lawn growing through extreme drought may require irrigation. The real principle is to stop treating frequent shallow watering as the default. When established grass is watered lightly every day, the surface can remain moist while deeper soil dries out. A better strategy, when local conditions and grass type allow it, is to water deeply and less frequently, allowing the soil to dry somewhat between watering events. That encourages roots to make better use of available moisture. The exact amount and frequency should depend on rainfall, soil type, temperature, grass species, and local restrictions. There is no magic schedule that works for every lawn. Now let us talk about mowing, because this is where many lawns are quietly weakened. Cutting grass extremely short can create the appearance of neatness, but it also removes a large portion of the plant's leaf surface. Grass leaves are not decoration. They are working solar panels. They capture light and help the plant produce energy. When you repeatedly cut off too much at once, you can place unnecessary stress on the plant. The widely used one-third mowing rule is simple. Avoid removing more than roughly one-third of the blade height in a single mowing. Keeping grass somewhat taller can also help shade the soil and reduce moisture loss. The ideal height, however, depends on the grass species, season, and climate, so do not copy a height blindly from a different region. And this leads to one of the biggest mindset changes in the entire method. Stop trying to make every inch of the lawn look identical. Nature does not produce a perfect green sheet. A healthy yard can contain different shades of green, small variations in texture, and a few plants that would traditionally be called weeds. That does not mean you should allow dangerous invasive plants, poisonous species, or aggressive weeds to take over. It means you should identify what is actually growing before declaring war on everything that is not turf grass. Some plants can coexist with grass without causing a serious problem. Clover, for example, can be tolerated in some lawns, depending on your goals, climate, and local conditions. The question becomes, does this plant threaten the health or function of the lawn, or does it simply fail to match an artificial picture of perfection? The Japanese natural farming philosophy that inspires part of this discussion goes even further. Natural farming practitioners such as Yoshikazu Kawaguchi have emphasized minimizing disturbance and allowing soil organisms, plants, and other living things to contribute to soil fertility rather than constantly rebuilding the soil through intensive intervention. Research on unfertilized cultivation systems in Japan has also documented approaches that deliberately avoid synthetic fertilizers and other external inputs, although those systems are agricultural methods and should not be confused with the universal lawn care recipe. That distinction is important. We're borrowing a principle, not pretending that every Japanese gardener maintains a lawn this way. The principle is simple. Work with the biological system instead of assuming every problem must be solved by adding something.
This is also where people misunderstand no fertilizer. If your soil is deficient in a nutrient, refusing fertilizer forever is not automatically better gardening. Grass needs nutrients. The question is where those nutrients come from and whether you actually need to add them. Soil testing can help reveal whether a nutrient is lacking instead of making you guess. In some lawns, returning clippings, maintaining organic matter, and improving soil conditions may reduce the need for frequent fertilizer. In other lawns, especially heavily used turf or nutrient-poor soil, some form of fertilization may still be appropriate. The goal is not to create a rule that says fertilizer is evil. The goal is to stop using fertilizer as a substitute for understanding your soil. If you want to reduce fertilizer dependence, begin with the easiest source of recycling already sitting on your lawn: grass clippings. When you mow correctly and the clippings are small enough to disappear into the canopy, they can decompose and return nutrients to the soil. Do not leave thick clumps on the surface. Those can block light and air and create problems. But when the clippings are properly dispersed, you are returning part of what the lawn produced instead of removing it every week. This is one of the most overlooked examples of closed-loop gardening. Your lawn grows using resources from the soil, air, water, and sunlight. You mow it, and some of that material can go right back into the system. Another major piece is aeration, especially if your lawn is compacted. Grass roots need access to oxygen as well as water. When soil is heavily compressed, those pathways can become restricted. Core aeration can remove small plugs of soil and create temporary channels for air, water, and roots. But do not automatically aerate every lawn every year just because someone on the internet said so. Timing matters. Aeration should generally be done when the grass is actively growing and the soil is not excessively wet. High-traffic areas may need it more than quiet areas. If the soil is already loose and healthy, unnecessary disturbance can simply become another chore. The natural approach is not never disturb the lawn, it is disturb it when there is a reason.
Now let us discuss weeds, because this is where many people spend more money and energy than they need to. A weed is essentially a plant growing where you do not want it.
but not every unwanted plant is equally harmful. Start by identifying the plant. Look at whether it spreads aggressively, competes heavily with the grass, produces seeds rapidly, or signals a deeper lawn problem. Moss may indicate shade, excessive moisture, or poor drainage. Certain broadleaf weeds may appear where turf is thin. Repeatedly killing the visible weed without improving the conditions that allowed it to establish is like wiping water off the floor while ignoring the leaking pipe. If the lawn becomes dense and healthy, there are fewer empty spaces available for opportunistic plants to occupy. That brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in this entire method: grow the solution. Instead of focusing only on killing weeds, focus on helping desirable grass cover the soil. Match the grass to your climate and site. Grass that is poorly suited to the amount of sunlight, heat, rainfall, or winter conditions in your area will always need more help. A shade-loving turf placed beneath dense trees may struggle no matter how much fertilizer you add. A cool-season grass exposed to extreme heat may require a completely different strategy from warm-season turf. Choosing the right plant for the location is often more powerful than trying to force the wrong plant to survive. You should also start observing your lawn in zones. Divide the yard mentally into areas: full sun, partial shade, heavy foot traffic, slopes, low spots, dry areas, and places where water collects. Then stop giving the entire lawn identical treatment. One zone may need less water, another may need aeration, another may need shade-tolerant grass, another may simply need time. This is a very Japanese-inspired way of thinking, in the sense that you are observing the specific character of the site instead of forcing everything into one uniform formula. The lawn becomes a collection of small ecosystems rather than one giant green machine.
And what about the claim that this method will fix your lawn forever? Be careful with that phrase. No lawn is permanently fixed. Grass grows, seasons change, weather changes, pests appear, soil gets compacted and landscapes mature. What you can build is a lawn that is less dependent on constant correction. That is a much more realistic goal. A resilient lawn may still need mowing. It may still need occasional watering. It may need overseeding, soil testing, aeration, or carefully chosen nutrients. The difference is that these actions become targeted responses instead of an endless routine of throwing products at symptoms. If your lawn is currently struggling, do not try to change everything in one weekend. Start by stopping the habits that are clearly hurting it. Raise the mower height to a suitable level for your grass. Follow the 1/3 rule. Sharpen the blade. Stop watering automatically every day. Check how deeply water penetrates the soil. Identify compacted areas. Leave appropriate clippings in place. Watch for standing water. Identify the weeds before treating them. And if the soil is poor, consider a soil test before adding nutrients. These small changes can tell you more about your lawn than buying another bottle or bag ever will. And there is one final lesson I want you to remember. The healthiest lawn is not necessarily the lawn that looks the most artificial. A lawn can be beautiful without being chemically dependent. It can be green without being watered every morning. It can be thick without being cut extremely short. It can have a little variation without being unhealthy. And it can become more resilient when you stop interrupting every natural process and start supporting the ones that already work. That is the real power behind this Japanese-inspired idea. Not doing nothing, but doing less of what is unnecessary and more of what actually builds resilience. So if you want to try this method, give yourself a season rather than expecting a miracle in 7 days. Observe first. Improve the soil. Mow intelligently. Water deeply when watering is necessary. Return suitable organic material to the lawn. Reduce unnecessary chemical inputs. Protect the root zone. Choose grass that belongs in your environment. And most importantly, learn to accept that a living lawn will never behave like plastic carpet. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a lawn that can handle ordinary stress without constantly demanding your intervention. If this changes the way you think about lawn care, let me know in the comments. What is the biggest problem you are dealing with right now? Dry grass, weeds, compacted soil, bare patches, or constant watering? Your answer could help us build the next Blueprint Backyard video around the problem homeowners are actually facing. And if you enjoy practical gardening ideas that help you work with nature instead of constantly fighting it, subscribe to Blueprint Backyard and stay with us. Because sometimes the secret to a better yard is not another product. Sometimes it is finally learning how to let the soil, the roots, the grass, and the natural cycle do more of the work.